master plan update. This is wonderful.
Excuse me?
That sounded like a room.
Can I try yours?
Yeah, perfect.
Is this a robot? Oh, good. All right. We met with the FAA yesterday. Had a really great coordination meeting with them. This is the second time we've met with them because of taking the lead on the runway expansion project. Normally, we're asking them for money and we're moving through their process, and because of the funding that we've received through the state and through our federal delegation, we have these new coordination meetings, and it went really well. What we did at this meeting was bring a list of all of the improvements we've made completely outside of the AIP process, so not needing their funding. So it kind of balanced between extra work that we've done with the Apron E project, where we've done more paving, we've moved more dirt, we've added more transient tie downs right next to the Crowley fuel location. And then we paved, I don't know if you noticed it, but we paved between Saloy and Crowley that shoulder, so now you can drive on pavement and not be on the taxiway. And then those new transient spots have power and lighting. So we used the really beneficial unit prices within the Apron E Phase 2 project to get that work done. And so then we moved about 60,000 cubic yards of material out of the hill. We call it Burger Hill right now, across the street from the main airfield. So we're pretty excited about that. And then the other things that we've been doing is purchasing equipment. So we have a new Metal Plus plow that we purchased. We have attachments for the loader so that we plus up our emergency response. We did a tabletop about a year ago where there's a earthquake in the valley and everything was shut down, and the military was going to fly in, transit planes, and they, land, and we take them apart if we needed to, that sort of thing. And then the question was, can you unload a plane? We said, well, we have a loader and we don't have any forks. So we bought some forks. And then we got a snowblower and attachments for having better snow removal abilities around the airfield lights, because they'll get drifted in and then we shear them off by accident. We try to get in there without that equipment. So we've just been continually trying to upgrade our equipment and facilities, and that goes a long way to filling the FAA with confidence that we're serious about this plan that we're moving ahead with, and also just letting them know that we're still following all of their procedures with these projects so that they will be partners with us in the future. We don't want to contaminate the process where they come back and say, oh, shoot, you missed one step, now we can't be a partner in this project or that project. So very, very great to talk with them, great to hear their perspective. Also just very useful to talk about their processes so that we have a kind of a roadmap ahead of us. So we were talking before the meeting about some nefarious criminal activities in the area, so I just shot the police chief an email asking him to up the patrols. We've also made some updates to the data connections to our cameras and the gates, and we're looking at getting a new key fob system for the gates. And probably when we know we can trust the system and we've rolled out the new key fobs, it's pretty likely that we're going to not have the gates open during the day. You'll need a key fob to get in. But I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by not having that process in place before and start to really impact our regular users. We want to roll that out smoothly. One of the reasons is, of course, for security, but the other is because of the moose entering the airfield through our open gates. We had a USDA, not inspection, but site visit, wildlife hazard assessment, to get their support in the fence upgrades that we need to do, fence replacements. That was something the FAA wanted to see, so we had a technician meet us out there and went on a hike around the airfield perimeter and helped us identify. We already knew fencing was down, and you probably see this from the air, but we've got several really long sections, hundreds of feet that have frost heaved and fallen over. If they haven't fallen over, they frost heave high enough that we have evidence that the moose are actually climbing underneath it. Their hair collects on the bottom of the fence. Yeah, that's how high it is. And we had gotten some pushback, especially with the new fence that we put along Aviation Avenue by the swamp. that FAA wasn't sure if they wanted to pay for the barbed wire on the top. And so that USDA inspection was also helpful because they sent the best management practices for fences, for moose, and that still includes the barbed wire. So that's a useful tool to go back to FAA and say, well, this is what they want us to do, you know, and the FAA's been very amenable to that, saying, yeah, sounds good. So we're actually waiting for official grant notice from the FAA to award a big fence repair project. So it's several $100,000. I think it's $350, and the FAA will help us with that. We're just waiting. We have probably a couple more weeks to wait for their 2025 letter of support. They make like a template or something, is what I understood. So we expect that very soon, where they officially support that project and we can receive some funding for that. So that will be something that we anticipate happening this spring when it's convenient for whenever the weather is convenient for the fencing contractor that was selected for that. I think that's basically my report. I think Deputy Administrator Nygaard had some information for you too.
Thank you. I just wanted to let the council know that we did get a $3 million appropriation from Murkowski through the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Bill, and that is waiting on the current president's signature. So it will be before January 21st. Also, about a year ago, we submitted some language with the help of our team for this FAA Reauthorization Act, and included the eligibility factor for economic development for a community, and that was passed. And so then we submitted a letter of interest for our general aviation runway expansion or extension. And we know that the FAA is going to award 2 airports in the state for this pilot project. And they have not said no, but we do know that there was 1 airport awarded under this pilot program. And what that really does is it allows some of the AIP dollars to go towards these improvements that you make for economic development. So we are anxiously waiting for that news in the next month or so.
Cool. Public comment. Is there any public comment that anybody would wish to make at this time?
Well, you didn't mention anything about the drone defense or anti-drone security. What about nefarious activities? I haven't heard
Well, there was
after.
Commissioner Grogan had to call the troopers up to the museum last night for people being on site. So there's just a band of people running around doing things. So we just want to have the police out there more.
Okay.
Is there any talk
Why
about?
don't you hop up?
Yeah. Would you like?
Sign in.
Yeah. Go for it. Don't
This
be
is-
afraid. It's
I'm more informally oriented, but Harry Zola, airport patron. But has there been any talk about doing anything for a winter ski strip, the gravel strip, besides what I've mentioned?
For like
Anything-
grooming this year?
The gravel strip is the winter ski strip.
I haven't.
Straight skis,
Yeah, so we for grooming, we've been happy to coordinate. If anyone has a groomer and wants to have some coverage, we'll send staff out there and man the radio and let you get out there and do that. I think we did that a couple times last year. So just let us know. I don't have the equipment for that. I think there's a volunteer that did it last year, and we had John Smith, our airport dedicated guy out there, monitor the radio for you. So if that's something you want to do, or if someone else wants to, just give us a call.
Could you state your name for the record? So you could have it.
Harry Zola. Yeah. Hey, did they get some shoes for the wide blade on the loader? Because they didn't have them last year.
For keeping some snow for you.
Well, they've been on the taxiways. They do a great job of scraping it down to the pavement,
Yeah.
which prevents
Yeah.
skis activity.
Our
But the operator told me he didn't have shoes for the blade.
I don't believe the equipment has changed, so it's gonna look basically the same this year. But we
'Cause,
do have a presentation about that in the future, so.
I mean, the shoes, you know, they help prevent wear on the cutting edges, but you can also leave a 3/4 inch of snow layer if you
Yeah,
do it that way. But, and as far as the gates, we talked about, two-way access. So if somebody gets in while the gate's open, you know, you just have to drive up. But if you have to have a fob to get out, has that been discussed anymore?
I think the gates will still remain where you can get out. You can't get locked in. We'll do
So
that for
somebody can
safety.
go in, but you're gonna close them, keep all the gates.
We want to have a reliable enough system where you need a key fob to get in, and it's not just open. So,
Instead of leaving that, was it the C gate open all
Correct.
the time?
but I don't want to do that prematurely. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to get the new key fobs, get registered properly, and then we'll have a way to, you know, help visitors get in and that sort of thing. But between like people getting on the airfield that shouldn't be there, and you know, drag racing or filling up on low lead or whatever in their hot rod, and then the moose coming in, we want to have a bit more control. So.
Yeah. And I don't know how much this plan has changed since, you know, a few months ago when I last mentioned it to you about possibility of, like on the northeast part of the airfield, put in a couple rows of T-hangers for when, well, I'm sure people would rent them, but also it would really help with wind, especially with the hill gone.
Yep, they're in there.
That's, oh, they are?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well,
All right.
I haven't been to a lot of meetings, but it's pretty impressive to see the entire board here.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, unfinished business, airport rate increases, we're going to be tabled for a future meeting. So we're not gonna be talking about that today.
Would you like me to give an update on just kind of the process? Yeah, so it's been in a holding pattern with the mayor and her decision on when to bring it through the council based on their bandwidth. They've been bogged down with Title 16, which is the landscape, or the planning code. And so they've done a major rewrite and been working through that. The other thing that's gonna happen too is we have a subscription to a program called Waterworth, and it does more than just water, but one of the things that they're helping us with is they take our current and future financial information. I think I gave a presentation on this, and they put it into a graphical system that helps the decision makers see what the effects of choosing to change funding or not change funding does for the bottom line. So now that our fiscal year 24 audit, is almost done, we need them to assimilate that too. So they'll assimilate that, and then we'll take the numbers that the commission had agreed on a year ago, put those in as well, and that'll be the starting point for the council to take your recommendations and see what it does for the bottom line of the airport and weigh the different constituents that they want to weigh. So that's kind of the plan now. And so microphones. Working with the mayor to make sure the timing's right for the workload of the council.
All right, thank you. New business, airport master plan.
So I'd like to introduce our consultants, HDL, Mark Swenson and Heather Campfield. We've been working hard on the master plan together. Part of meeting with the FAA yesterday was to talk about that and let them see what's been going on. We've had 3 public meetings now. So a lot of feedback, a lot of assimilation of comments. I think anyone who did make comments is probably going to see some of their comments illustrated in this plan. I think we've had a lot of capability of assimilating a lot of comments. So it's a good chance at least one of your comments is in there. Mr. Mark Swenson's going to give us a presentation about where we are and tell us a little bit more about where we're going. And so you have a handout in front of you, which is the PowerPoint that he'll be presenting tonight. We may need 1 minute to get things fired up, but we'll have a PowerPoint in just 1 second.
See here. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, I want to sleep on it. Oh, okay. Heather, I may need your assistance here. But while we wait, I am Mark Swenson. I lead our aviation engineering department at HDL. With me is Heather. She's helps me with planning and is also the lead of our environmental group, which the NEPA process and the environmental process is as much as the design process is these days in developing an AIP-funded airport project. So I think I've met most of you.
Ashley, what is wrong with me?
If not all of you. So it's very good to see you all again. You do. Very good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Most people are probably on Teams.
Yeah. It's all right. It's I like it when you get in-person engagement. Okay.
Tag team.
Okay.
You choose which way you want to go.
Are they connected to these or how's
Yeah,
this
she's
work?
gonna have them fired
Okay.
up.
Perfect.
This is the nighttime plan.
We spent a lot of work on it.
There's one.
And slideshow from the beginning. There we go.
Connected.
Yeah, they should be.
Manually turn them on?
I mean, that one fired up.
Yeah.
Good, now it's.
They kept shutting off on me on the other meeting too.
This one's got a red line.
I can lead you through it on the handout. Oh, there was one.
There you go.
I'm gonna try not turning that one off and pointing it right here.
Okay. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's all the
Oh,
same
there we
thing,
go.
and it's all.
Wait, no, that one's on.
It's,
It's like whack-a-mole.
Here, we'll call that good.
Nobody move.
Hold on.
Right.
That's
Okay.
funny.
All right.
13-year-old.
Well, if you can have it in front of you, and sir, you got one too, right? Yep. Okay. We can. The only person that might not have one is me.
Here.
There's one in the. There's a bunch in the back.
Mine's more for Braille.
But we can go through this, and honestly, I'd like to treat this as a conversation. If you have questions as I present, please feel free to raise your hand, and I can get to them. But we, as Eric said, we have been really, and quite frankly, this has been a lot of fun. This master plan. We've been working hard on it. Where we are in the stage of development is the last time we had a public meeting. And this was in the summer or late beginning of the fall. We presented some preliminary alternatives, and we asked the participants in the meeting to sit down to mark them up, and we kind of workshopped them, and we spent 4 hours or so.
Just want to make sure we got it for the recording.
Okay, sorry. Is it? Everybody got me? Okay.
You're good.
There we go. We spent 4 hours or so picking those alternatives apart, trying to have people, if they have a better idea, making sure we considered them. And then we've spent the last couple months developing what we call the alternatives recommendations report. So we have concluded phase 1 of the report, which is, and we reported that, I believe, earlier, which was the conditions and needs assessment. And that is the inventory and the aviation forecast, the standards that the airport is supposed to meet, and any deficiencies where it doesn't meet it, where we consider public comment about what people would like to see with development. And we now have begun the phase 2, which I discussed as the development of the alternatives to address those needs. And we've engaged with stakeholders on those alternatives. So the alternatives are the next 3 slides, and they're a little bit going to be tough to make out all the details of them, but I believe everybody in this room has seen them before. Honestly, not a lot has really changed. The first alternative is the existing conditions. And really why you include that is it's the baseline of where you start from. And you compare your other alternatives to that existing conditions. So it's really, I've had some public comment in the past about, well, what is this? This isn't anything anybody's gonna want. But you really, in every master plan, you include it because it establishes the baseline. And when you go to do an implementation plan about what alternative you're gonna construct, just because you don't acquire land or you don't choose to do some, doesn't mean you don't do any of them. You include the existing conditions because it is the clean slate baseline that you can pick and choose other things from the future alternatives to say, all right, we don't want this apron, but maybe we want this one, and it is a very useful tool. When you evaluate the existing conditions, it's pretty easy. It doesn't cost any money. The maintenance is the same. The trends are the same. The airport's gonna continue to operate as it does currently. The next alternative is where we start to have some fun with the land that we have available, and you guys can take some time. We've identified every intricacy of this alternative in the side if you can read it. But the bigger things is we've shown the ultimate condition of the runway expansion to 6,000 feet. We may eventually have to do that in increments. I don't think the FAA is not going to support, in the near term at least, a 6,000 foot runway. We're going to have to demonstrate an incremental use to get to that 6,000 feet. But we show it for the ultimate plan. You show the ultimate condition, so that 6,000 foot construction of the runway, building the width out to 100 feet so it can accommodate a larger aircraft. We also, in just generally speaking, the southwest corner, we've added general aviation apron capacity. And then where Burger Hill is, where they've started the excavation, we've shown the continuation of taxiway, I believe that's Charlie, across the street, across Aviation Avenue. And the brown is showing possible areas for GA hangar development. In the blue, and I realize this now, it looks like water, so we'll change that in the eventual plan. But that's where we're saying would be good uses for GA, or for commercial activity. So we're trying to provide some separation of GA and commercial activities with our tie downs. There's other aprons across that street, or across Aviation Avenue in that area. Over to the northeast, we have we have one row of hangars to break the wind right on the east side of Apron E.
The new ramp
Yeah,
out there.
right at the new ramp. We're saying the next thing that gets built would be some hangars to help provide some windbreak. We're suggesting that the city owns those hangars, and they lease out hangar space. That's something that would be new in this area for the sponsor to own. There's some criteria for the FAA to get them on board with helping construct that, but they were behind us showing it on the plan. If you continue further down that area, that's where the city is planning to build the Aviation Business Center. And that's a mixed-use building that has hopefully a office for an airport manager. It has a heated hangar bay for rent. It has classrooms. It has maybe some waiting rooms, waiting areas for use as somewhat of a terminal, and some classrooms to rent if folks want to do that, and some restrooms for the public. So that would be a very cool development on the airfield. And then we're showing the development of across Aviation Avenue in that area of some more commercial lease lots and extensions of a taxiway through those lease lots. that's a gigantic hill right now. That's a lot of material that needs to come out of there to make that those lease lots happen. But it's a plan. Let's show it. With that, we are routing Aviation Avenue around the north side of those new lease lots, but we're not impacting the museum property with this alternative. We're coming around the south side of the museum property and intersecting Beacon Drive right on the north side of the Shred building, the equipment building that's there right now. So it would provide a little bit of circulation so that everybody that comes through that area doesn't need to come through the guts of the airport. I think that would help. I'm probably missing a few things here, but to catch the big points, moving to the south of the airport, there's a new taxiway Kilo development that is actually in design right now. So it didn't take much to develop this whole part of the alternative. And that is commercial lease lot space and a partially constructed parallel taxiway in that area with a large aircraft apron on the, I guess that'd be the western side of that development. So that's in design right now. We're hoping to get construction funding, and depending on that funding level will be how much it gets built, as if it needs to be built in phased construction or not. Continuing in that area, there's a couple other things that we're showing. We're showing a lease lot that would be available for Matsuburo to have fire and rescue there if they so chose. There was some interest, so we thought we'd plan for a space where that might be accomplished, and also a heliport or a helipad over there, where folks could isolate if there was medevac helicopters, we're giving them a place to go. If there was helicopter training activity, giving them a place to go. Trying to just designate in a helicopter area, understanding that one of the largest lease operators out there also is a helicopter operator, and that's probably going to continue. And as we go south there, we're providing landside access to the developable area in that general direction. We didn't extend any, under this particular alternative, we didn't extend any other taxiways down there. This alternative does require land acquisition. And for the runway extension to the west, and also for the developments south of the taxiway Kilo area, we are actively helping the city right now move forward with acquisition of some of the parcels on the western side already. And Eric, I don't know if you want to speak about, or you want me to give an update on where we are in that. Is that okay with you? Yeah, we have, and man, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we have given offers on a handful of parcels in that area already. Some people have, and this doesn't really demonstrate it all that well, but it's there's a section of area that was going to be developed into small chunks in that general area, and development had already started. People were putting in utilities, people were putting in foundations, and we got in front of them already and have made offers with the hope to get to pause development of residential areas in that area. And so far it's been pretty positive. People understand what we're trying to do and are interested in getting recouped for their cost and fair market value for their land. But no one is really all that upset about it, and they understand what we're doing, and they've been very willing partners in the sale. Some of the bigger parcels right off the end of the runway we're about to give offers to and are in negotiations with. So there's hope that really we need about one more round of funding that we're looking for, and hopefully we can have if not all, the parcels to the west of the airport that we would need for the ultimate development acquired and becoming airport property in 2025, which is really exciting. Normally, there's acquisition of property for something like this is usually a big headache, and it's been pretty smooth. We have a good team working on it. The city's been really supportive and interested, and the people we're working with have been great. So it's been a real positive deal. So yeah, that's alternative 2. I don't know if you guys want me to pause now and give any, and really this handout I gave you is not in the slides. It's a lot of information, and it gives descriptive comparisons between the alternatives, so that you can kind of see, and we can use that as a basis of any discussion you want to have. Yes, sir.
There was talk of a skydiving center or something in this area. Do they have a designated landing? Do they have a designated landing area?
So we are working with the city right now to understand what because there's been some developments, I think, in the skydiving person that had some interest lately. And I think the understanding that is right now, and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the taxiway Kilo area that we're showing that is currently being designed right now, and is that flat area that was filled from, as it exists right now, it's flat, it's filled from past apron expansions that they've wasted material over there. In the near term, I think the idea is that that's where they're gonna land. And we are going to consider that impact, likely to try and keep them over there. Whether it is in the new apron area that's gonna be constructed in the second phase of taxiway Kilo development. But I think that's the plan as of right now.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we had an operator last week that came and landed at the airport because Anchorage was fogged in real bad.
Yeah.
And they made a comment that Wasilla, a lot of times when Anchorage is really bad, Wasilla is perfectly open and they're able to get in, but they're not able to list Wasilla as an alternate because it doesn't have a terminal area forecast, whereas Palmer does, but it's got a worse approach. And so they can't really list Palmer as an alternate either. So they've been forced to list Kenai as their official alternate.
They said that the TAF was the
Yeah.
reason why?
Yeah, the TAF, because they don't have the forecast
Okay.
required an hour before, an hour after of their arrival time in order to show that it's a proper alternate.
Interesting.
I was gonna just bring it up or ask if there was any discussion about adding better or advanced weather services to this in order to take advantage of the fact that Wasilla is positioned well for an alternate.
Well, it is. It's positioned well. I think you guys probably know better than me how well positioned it is for the winds and how well it's positioned in the weather. I think that's a great comment. And the FAA has not offered that up on their side, but I think we can push it on our side and have those conversations. I hadn't heard that. I'd be interested in talking to the folks that gave you the comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be happy to get you their names. And then the other thing would be run-up areas. One of the big things that we have a problem with operating large aircraft, and then also if there's going to be more flight training or other types of operations, having proper run-up areas on the airport that are designated for such, just so they're not just running in like full power runs willy-nilly wherever.
Yeah. We are going to designate as part of the discussions of taxiway Kilo. We're about at 65% design with the taxiway Kilo area. There's an area there that is a good candidate for a designated run-up area.
Perfect.
And so we want to see if we can maintain that, and that will be the first phase of development too, I think. So as soon as we can build that, you should have that problem taken care of.
Okay. And then also at both ends of the runway as well, having an area, just because,
Yeah.
especially on the east end, if you get two airplanes that come
Congested.
around the corner, it gets congested, and
Yeah.
there's not enough room to do a run-up with an airplane behind you.
Yeah, that's a good, we're having a similar conversation at Merrill Field right now with the FAA and in the tower. They want little run-up pockets. So yeah, that's an easy thing for us to include too. Ms. Canfield, can you make sure I don't forget?
I got you.
Thanks.
I
Mr.
would-
Rogan?
Yeah, I would add that the skydivers, as much as I love skydiving, man, that complicates your pattern. That causes some serious issues. It is unbelievable. If you've got a downwind, like where you have on taxiway Kilo, that's a prime perch point for the downwind. The aircraft are at their max altitude. The skydivers are coming through. You've got a serious conflict there with skydivers coming in. If you can move them somewhere midfield, or even say Ohio, I mean, I'm not against the skydivers. Get the guy in here. We'll go beak to beak. I've worked with him.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. But there's a better way to do the skydiving. Even if you look up where the museum is located, I'm not saying land on museum, that would give them faster access midfield, out of the downwind pattern, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want skydivers coming through your downwind.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think,
So midfield and very, very north or very, very south out of the downwind.
and I think the skydiving component, the skydiving situation has not been vetted adequately in this alternative. And we need to kind of make sure we have a better solution to propose, I think, than this.
I would urge you to go talk to Palmer operators who are on the field with the skydiving, including the skydiving guys, and get them together in the same room, because there's been some serious, I mean, I had a parachute literally come over my aircraft
Did you?
on the ground at Palmer. So I would talk to those, they've had these fights already.
Yeah.
So I think there's some good valuable information from the Palmer guys that would say where we could or should not put them.
Yeah, I think the airport is currently just using the space that they have available that has access to it. So I'm,
Houston's nice this time of year.
but that doesn't mean we have to plan it that way. So that's another valuable point that we can take and include them in both alternatives. So yeah,
Yeah, because Palmer has the flight service station,
yep,
and they announce
right.
to people that actually have radios. So, and we don't have that here, so.
No, it's a really good point. It's a frustration to plan around. I'm not gonna lie. It's the influx of a skydiving component is interesting development. But anyway, so that's the second alternative. I'm gonna hit the third one really quickly, and it's very similar, but we've gone further with this one. The main discussion is the museum property and is shown as eventually, if there was any interest in the museum to ever relocate, the airport would be interested in acquiring that property and routing the road even further to the north, so it went around the perimeter and intersected basically at the intersection of Beacon and Museum Drive. So it made you wouldn't have that hard 90-degree intersection with Beacon Street. You'd have a nice road that went around the perimeter of the airport. That also opens up more commercial development, and for this alternative, I just showed simply that the left side of the west side of Beacon Street would be designated for GA commercial GA hangar development. The east side would be designated for commercial development, and try to provide a little bit better separation between those two uses. And the other major thing this was after we kind of got through some design elements of taxiway Kilo. I wasn't sure that the grades would ever work to have a taxiway south and expand airside access south of taxiway Kilo, south of those areas that are planned for development in the near term. I do think that eventually the grades will work, and actually I As I got thinking about it, I liked it more because you can move a lot of the material from the hill that you're gonna move to build hangar space, and you can use that to fill in depressions over in that area. You're gonna need a place to put the fill anyway. Once you acquire the land, we can start building the sub-base, basically, for a taxiway and some more commercial lease lot expansion in that area. Those are the major differences between those. I guess I'll stop here and see if anybody has any questions about that.
What happens to that drainage that's south of the field that we talked about before, when you put you're talking about filling that swamp, then the water all drains down to that lake to the east, and then it comes back down that little creek. What happened to that?
What we're gonna need to do as this gets developed and pushed, we're gonna need to do a H&H study and make sure we are not, there's some the culverts may not flow necessarily, but they provide equalization between bodies of water. And as we move forward with any design, planning, I think we can safely say that we can plan to not cause a problem. Design, we'll have to study design so we don't cause a problem. Last thing I want to do is cause a problem in Jacobson Lake and all that stuff.
Be sure to use your mic when you have questions.
What did you say, Peanuts teacher?
Use your mic.
Put your mic
Really,
on.
you're one to talk.
I'll just point out that I accidentally put two alternative threes in this slide, so
So
you need to flip 2 pages.
if you really like alternative 3, you can see it again.
Yes.
But, so, if you get through both alternative 3s, you will get to a abbreviated comparison of the alternatives that really shouldn't surprise many people. In my opinion, some of the things that are considered in the environmental impacts. So the environmental impacts of alternative 1, no change. Environmental impacts of alternative 2 will be greater than alternative 1, but less than alternative 3. That's the kind of level of evaluation we're doing at this point. We have quantified a lot of those impacts, but in the evaluation and in the report that we developed, we have a detailed descriptions of those impacts, but for this level of a presentation, and a summary, that's the level we're doing. Similar with revenue generation, a lot of the revenue will be directly proportional to the amount of lease lot area we can open up and the amount of GA hangar spaces. And the costs of maintaining those surfaces are also pretty directly proportional to that. The more asphalt we put out there, the more it costs to maintain it. One of the next steps that we do will be a detailed, once we select an alternative, we're gonna do a detailed financial plan for that alternative. That will feed into a lot of rate study information that Eric's already got working. And, but we will help the airport. Northern Economics will be the one leading that. And the idea is that they prepare a financial plan that describes the payback of the investment to construct the alternative and also the revenue generated by the alternative. So but what we want to do is kind of get to a selected alternative before we spend that effort. We don't want to do that on all 3 alternatives. The one thing that is maybe of interest is the alternatives that I proposed here. There's a lot of room that we're showing expansion of lease lot areas. We could use that more for GA aprons if we wanted to. But what I did is I said in the near term, we're gonna expand the GA aprons along the runway in those variable areas and continue construction of the GA aprons. But majority of the developable land will be for lease lots. We can play with that ratio a little bit. Right now, the alternatives don't meet, they meet like 80% or 90% of the forecasted demand for GA tie-downs for the next 20 years. That forecasted demand is exactly that. It would take care of all the demand that's on the current wait list, and then the forecasted growth allow for that, and the alternatives meet around between 80 and 90% of that forecasted demand. It over provides for lease lot development, and that seemed to be the direction that the city was comfortable making, and a lot of the feedback we heard from the public as well. The other thing to note, I think, is probably also no surprise, is we built estimates for every one of these elements that was figured on the alternative using current bid pricing from recent projects here in Palmer, Merrill-Field, Birchwood. And the total sum for alternative 2 is $230 million, and alternative 3 is $248 million. So, a lot of big money, a lot to do, but it's a big plan. So, is there any surprises on those alternatives? Anybody have any questions? I think most people are pretty comfortable with how we got here and what's in them. I really do appreciate the feedbacks from this commission and your support throughout each step of this process. It's actually been really positive, and just like suggestions today, something that we'll take away from and incorporate. So just kind of moving on, and I won't spend too much time, but the report currently suggests moving forward as a recommended alternative 3, the full, more complete build-out alternative. If we're gonna plan this level of development, I think it makes sense to really recommend the most complete build-out, the one that provides the most land, the one that provides the most separation between GA and commercial uses, also the one that provides the most convenience for that perimeter access road around it. Understanding that this is a plan, the acquisition of the museum and the relocation of the museum property may or may not ever happen, but if you don't show it on the ALP and you don't show it on a plan, that's something that they're considering. The FAA would never participate in it if it came around. So that's the reason why I think it's a good idea to show the most complete build out that we can. The most impact, the most benefit to the community, most benefit to the users. So that was my recommended alternative. I think it would be helpful, and I don't know if you necessarily need to do it today, that if this commission would give a resolution that supported the recommended alternative. And we would like to go to the public for the next public meeting, and I'm gonna give a very similar spiel and get public feedback on the recommended alternative and give the public a chance to weigh in. We'll have Meadow Lakes Community Council be invited. I will most likely make a second. I've already made one presentation to their council, and I'll most likely make another one, and also invite them to the public meeting. Next steps, once we get a agreement on a recommended alternative, we break that down into an implementation plan, which basically makes, we call them a CIP data sheet, but the supporting documentation that the FAA would need to have for them to build that recommendation into their program. And we give them a package that they can use to support that. And we forecast, so what we do is then we break it down into say, this is what we want to have built in the next 5 years. This is what we'd like to have built in the next 5 to 10 years. This is what we'd like to have built in the next 10 to 20 years. And then if there's maybe some remainder after that even. So the FAA's pretty much said, we don't have $248 million. So we sure, let's plan it out, let's build it in steps. Show me the city's plan. They make no assertion that they have the funding available to do any of it. So, but they've been very interested and easy to work with. They have not been adversarial at all. It's been a very good process. And let's see, what's my last slide say? Oh, yeah. So if all this goes well, we want to engage with the public on a preferred alternative, and hopefully in February. Is that what you're thinking? Late January, February. Finish the implementation plan in the springtime, and then start the financial plan, and then in master planning, this is kind of, you're through the hard part, and you really just need to compile everything into a nice looking document. We have a lot of, even this document here is close to 60 pages that we just developed. I don't want this to be a 300-page master plan. We need to condense it down to something that is easily digestible to the public so that they can get supportive. So that's a lot of what developing the final master plan is taking your supporting documentation and condensing it into a digestible plan that you can present. So we have to do that. And then we have to build the ALP. And I've already started that, and we've got a good start on it. And we're gonna, as we go through the preferred alternative, we'll just keep updating it. And my whole goal is to be done early fall with the master planning process, and give the city something that they can move forward with and say, this is what we want to go, and answer any planning level questions for them.
One thing I've heard in the past, and yet not tonight, is discussion about airspace usage and theoretically bringing in some light jets or, I don't know,
So
heavy turboprops or.
we looked at the approaches in detail about how the approaches are currently used, the existing ones, and I don't think your bang for your buck, and also the FAA has basically stated that they're not supportive of installing the ILS equipment to need it on the ground. I think basically what you have is going to be sufficient enough to bring in a little bit larger aircraft to use, provided we have the runway length for it and width. All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, with that presentation, I'd like to poll the commission on a couple things. So, Mark, let me make sure if I understand correctly. Are you hoping that the commission has a kind of a decision made to take into that February meeting?
I think it's not necessary. It sure would be nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, here's what I propose. We can't do any action on this tonight because we didn't notice it. But the next new business item is to talk about our meeting schedule. I propose meeting once a quarter next year. So we have a proposal to meet in our normal time slot in January 16th. So if there's kind of consensus here tonight that you want to consider a resolution of support for one of these, we can notice that properly. We can say discussion and possible action on a resolution of support for one of the options in the master plan, and then you can talk about it amongst yourselves, and then you could, if you feel comfortable and you've had your questions answered, you're more than welcome to get more information, through me directly between now and then we could make an official decision in January, and then Mark and the team could take it to the public meeting in February, which we hope you attend to, and we can all say, we've talked about it, we've reviewed it, we've noticed it, we'll put this whole packet into the January agenda too, so everyone can see it. And I think that'll work really well if everyone feels comfortable with that. So I'm just looking for a kind of a head nod from the group if you feel comfortable that you could be part of a decision in January if we have that meeting, and then give some guidance to our team as we move into the next public meeting.
And this would be with the understanding that it will change a little bit, but it's the main focus and direction would be one of the two,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
alternate one, alternate
Yep.
alternate two.
And it could even be like, I mean, there could be caveats, you know, like, the other understanding is that we'll be expected to renew this again in 10 years.
Yeah.
We're not gonna build $200 million in 10 years. I would love to, but it's just not gonna happen. So there'll be a lot of things that we haven't been able to get to, and there'll be plenty of time to pivot. But like Mark said, it's really important that we continue to show the striving to the future, have the process official with the FAA so that they do support us, continue to garner public input as the airport develops. And then we need these in so many different economic forums. We need this to take to the governor. We need this to take to the legislature. We need this to take to our federal representation, not just FAA, but Department of Commerce and who's the other group? Transportation, all of them, right? So, yeah, being bold is a good idea right now. So if, is there, do I have enough head nods to bring a basic resolution next meeting and?
I would be in favor of adding that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure we
Is
do
this-
it early enough so that we get public input at that meeting and then we'll roll into the next, specific airport master plan meetings.
Yeah.
And you can even say that subject to any changes out of future public meetings or something like that, so.
Yeah,
This
we don't
is a,
have
this
to-
is a public process.
We don't have to lock it down to explicit, but it's, at this point, the Airport Advisory Commission recommends whatever you recommend at that time.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the airport advisory meeting schedule.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my proposal, and I'm hoping that the commission agrees with this, would like to, my understanding is, before I got here, it was kind of a regular quarterly meeting schedule. I bumped it up because we had a bunch of decisions to make. And then based on workload or what we want to cover, we would meet and then not meet. And I'm sure that's really disruptive to your schedule. And so what I was hoping was, what I'd like to propose is that we go back to the quarterly schedule. And so the proposed meeting dates are January 16th, 2025, April 17th, 2025, July 17th, 2025, and October 16th, 2025. And we can always amend those dates at a future meeting if everyone's gonna be out of town or something like that. But at least we can give the public that calendar moving into 2025, and they can stay abreast of the meetings that we're gonna have. It lines up, the first meeting would line up very well to be prepared for the February-ish public meeting for the AIP.
Could you repeat those dates?
Yeah, absolutely. January 16th, April 17th, July 17th, and October 16th.
Thanks. Yeah. The quarterly meetings sound good to me. Do we need a motion to do that?
Yeah,
Is
so
that
the process now would be
So-
someone would make a motion second, talk
Yeah.
about it, decide what you want to do.
Okay. Yeah, so I make a motion to move to quarterly meetings for the Airport Advisory Commission.
Second.
Second. Is there any further comment, or anybody have?
I think the actual, I think the city code, I think, says monthly meetings, right? And we've done this before, we modified it to quarterly. And then when all the funding, the BIL and all that funding looked like it might impact, we thought maybe we should have more frequent meetings, and then just have Ashley cancel them as we didn't need them, and that's worked well, except for it's a lot of work for her, so I don't care.
So process-wise, you could look for, you can ask for more discussion, or you could say any objection, and then if there's none, you can say it passes, so.
Okay.
Or you can have a roll call
Is there any
vote if you want
objection?
to.
You guys, that's it.
Yeah, so I'm leaving the board, but I will say that going to monthly was helpful as heck. When we did have to cancel, we could but trying to get to come in when you can't do it. Monthly just worked better. We actually got stuff going. We started communicating more. We had better communication. So as I'm out of here, it's I'll object to it, but I think you guys would be wise to stay with monthly, but fully understand why we go quarterly. So.
And
I'm not
I
mad at
have
it.
no preference. I just didn't want to overwhelm the cancellation of the board. Like I felt bad canceling, if that makes sense, because I didn't know. I don't know how it's perceived by the public. I don't know if you get feedback if people are like, I was gonna go and you canceled on me. So I have it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. Me, if you don't feel it's negative on the public's eye for doing business, I really don't have a problem. I'm happy to poll the chair and any of the other members if there's business to do. I just didn't want to feel like we were canceling too many.
So for me, it's not canceling. I haven't altered my schedule at all to try to attend these. Does it is it a lot of workload to
No.
the city to cancel or to keep it on a monthly, just so there's a flexibility to bring up things and talk more, or is there?
No, it's we either post it or we cancel it. It's the same basically. So
Okay.
yeah.
So maybe it would be better to stick with a monthly and just with the understanding of we'll cancel as needed
Okay.
to bring it up.
So then, if that's the will of the board, we'll want to see that in a motion or an amendment, and the amendment could be either rescinding the motion and saying, we want to stick with the monthly and cancel when there's no business. It's kind of up to you how you want to do that.
I feel like I could go either way. Do you have an
Move to
opinion?
rescind this motion.
Second,
Okay.
I think rescind is probably not the right word, but
Might be.
it's maybe move to table indefinitely.
That motion,
Yeah, I think
or
so.
to keep it the same.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
second.
Okay. Any objections to that? All right. So no objections. We'll keep the monthly meetings.
Okay. And so the way we'll operate that is we'll keep the third Thursday of the month, and if there's no active business, by polling, yes, go ahead.
Need to vote.
I don't think we do because we're not changing it. And so
Yeah.
my proposal was to choose the quarter, stick with the quarter. The original plan has been, or the original setup has been, the third Thursday of the month.
But the original motion was tabled.
Right. So so it's back to the way it had been, not changing anything.
And the effect of that, of tabling it, is it can be brought up at any time if we desire, if things slow down, if something happens and we don't need to meet, we can bring this off the table and vote to do it quarterly.
Very good.
Okay. Moving on. Public comment. Okay. Moving on, no public comment. Staff comments. Anything further you guys would like to add?
Two things. One is our comprehensive plan that has to be done every 10 years. We are in contract with Dow, and that kickoff is this week. So I will coordinate with Eric in planning to have them come forward, give a little presentation on how this applies to the airport. Specifically, there is property at the airport that will need to be annexed out of the borough into the city. And also currently at the airport, everything is in industrial use classification. And therefore, if a hotel was to come and want a permit to build out there, that is not allowed right now. So those are the ways that this comp plan is gonna potentially need your input. And it is a 12 to 18 month process. So the other thing is we are doing infrastructure tours every Tuesday from 3:30 to 5. And we usually aim to take one council person and then somebody from the advisory committees and an employee. So it's kind of an interesting mix. And we go up to the tower to show the water expansion. We go to the sewer plant, show our SCADA updates. We go out to the airport. Then we go to a couple commercial districts around the city to show how different they are from a infrastructure perspective. We've gotten really good feedback because we have an excellent narrator right here. I'm the driver, he's the narrator. I provide jokes, he provides beverages. And so if you're interested in going on one of those, call me, or we will be reaching out to one of you as we go along in the next few months. Thanks.
Yeah, they've been very fruitful. You don't know where the sewer treatment plant is till someone takes you there, so you learn a lot.
What are those called again?
Infrastructure tours. Yeah. Well, keep it inside. Keep it in the family. I have some comments. So this is the end of, we have terms, and so Mr. Grogan is at the end of his term, and so there's a reapplication process, and a different application was selected. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Grogan for his continued effort to improve our airport. You joined us in late 2019, so more than 5 years of support, and we just really appreciate all the support you've provided, and you've had a lasting impact in the last 5 years, so we thank you for that. I think we covered everything else I was gonna mention. There was one other thing about infrastructure. Yeah, so Mark mentioned the acquisition of properties. We received a $5 million grant through the state, through the governor and our representation. We've been using that towards the stated goal, which is the runway extension. So you saw some of the extra work that we did with the Burger Hill excavation. That was above and beyond the FAA funding portion of it. And so we've leveraged those monies, and we've done some other work. We're gonna be using the rest of those funds to buy those properties that we need at the end of the runway. And so I will have legislation from the council in January to buy those first parcels, but we're gonna expend those funds, and so then I'm gonna go to the council and say, we actually put a CIP in last year for more funding for property purchases, but we hadn't gone nearly far enough down the road to know exactly how much it cost. We're gonna use all of those, and so then I'm gonna go to the council as on top of that and say, we need general funds to finish this. And so your support in that will be very pivotal. We can't move ahead if we don't have it all. We know what we need because of this great planning process that we've done. Those RPZs are super important. And so it's that, confidence in the goal to say, we're so close to finish line, let's get through this. And so we'll be looking for your support with the council to say, let's keep going, don't stop and only get 80% of the property that we need. So it's not incredibly expensive, but we didn't really talk about this. I just want to make you aware of this. When we buy property through the FAA process, it has been a honed process that touches, national projects, right? And so there has been history that's led to the process watching out for those property sellers. And like one of the properties we're buying is a home that has value, and so there are interesting, what's the word? There's guidance and support for those homeowners to relocate. And so it's not a normal, just I'll buy your land, let's move ahead. There was an in-depth property evaluation. We did site inspections for environmental concerns, and then you can get a stipend to find a new place to live. And that's all driven by the federal pamphlet on how airports must procure property, because I'm sure somewhere back east they tried to get someone's house for $1 and grandma, was mistreated. And so we're not doing that here. We're being very upfront. And I think that's one of the reasons that Mark was able to say that our relationships with these sellers has been very cordial, because the process is outlined in a way that they're made whole. They're not left unaccounted for. And so we're pretty proud of that. It's been new for us as a city because we haven't ever tried to buy property that we are doing in the FAA way. And that goes back to the idea that we do not want to inadvertently exclude ourselves from FAA support with this runway extension, because the deputy administrator and the mayor have moved mountains with our federal delegation to get the FAA reauthorization bill to have the language that we need to be possibly seen as, what do we call it, economic development going into the calculus for funding. Normally, that doesn't matter at all, but because our representation was able to add those words, we're in the running, at least right now, to have extra support that we never would have been able to get. And so that's why I felt it was exceedingly important that we go through the right federal process, because that was not going to be something that stopped us at the 9th hour, you know, because we didn't realize it. So anyway, that's just a call for support as I go to the council for more funding requests to get us through that finish line of those 11 parcels that we need to buy. Thanks.
Thank you. So other comments? I would like to say thank you, Mr. Krogan, for, I haven't been here long, but your enthusiasm and knowledge on these certain matters have been very helpful.
Thank you.
So, thank
Yep.
you.
So thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. I'd also like to know, maybe at the next meeting, we can have a little bit of a report on the three-phase power. I know that the city is looking for $500,000 from the state, and I'd like to know where MEA is on that, and if they have bid on it, and where that all is. That's, when I talked to the mayor today, she said that has the potential of being a stumbling block to growth in the short term. And so it would be great if we have to have a resolution, maybe you could put that together and we can discuss it and sign it if you need a resolution of support to go to the state for the funding for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can give you more information on that. So Clapp Road didn't have electrical service on it. It stopped at the top of the hill. Menard gets its power from the other side. So there was a gap across Lucille Creek. So we have made a little bit of progress. The owner of the gravel pit next door, K&H Pit, he paid the lion's share of the cost to MEA to extend three-phase power to his property because it's basically done being a gravel pit. He's subdividing it as one of our last remaining industrial zones. We joined him as a partner and paid our share to get it through his property and back onto the airport property right at the corner. But we do remain unconnected across the creek. We've met with MEA most recently and asked where our FEMA grant was, and they didn't have much of an answer. They were going to check into it. We've been in limbo with FEMA because it sounded from our perspective that whoever was the right person to review it wasn't in that position or something. It has been our legislative priority, so Deputy Administrator Nygaard has that in there, and so we are advertising it to all the delegations. It's even in our, I think it's in the packet you just made, right? Yeah. So we'd be happy to share that legislative priorities packet that was just printed this week. So we are definitely trying those avenues, but I'd be happy to get you more information on where the stumbling block is, and if we're missing a key player in it, we'd love to hear that too.
I have the right person for you, so just give me a call and I'll hook you up.
Okay,
with
we'll do
more
that.
intro or something, so.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Rogan.
Thank you. So for me, as I fly my way out of here, it's been an honor to serve the city. I love it. I love the way the airport's going. I love what you guys have. We finally got, good communication with you guys, and I just love what you guys. 6,000 feet's fantastic. 3 things I have as I run out the door: get those bloody rates implemented. We voted on that 2 years ago or a year ago. Let's just do it. I mean, I know everybody. Your numbers are published publicly if you didn't know that. So I got a lot of hate calls saying don't raise my rates, but it needs to get done. The other one was I've had 3 public work I've worked under or with, and Mr. Shaw doing a hell of a good job, sir. Definitely way too many irons in the fire for one guy to do. So I use that as a segue to say, get that guy an airport manager, so he can take one iron out of the fire, so we can get this airport going and keep it going. And the last thing is I want to put a push out for the air show again, for getting the Wings Over Wasilla going. Whether it's a fly-in or an air show, I really urge that we get that going, or you guys get that going again. Museum's just up the road, so we're there to help. We're a nonprofit. YMCA is a nonprofit. We can do it. It's just, I'd love to get that airport. It really shows the community how valuable that airport is and that we're there on the map and gets people involved. So that's just my 2 cents. And again, God bless you guys. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. Grog out.
Thanks. So if I could add on to that Wings of Wasilla thing, that would be a perfect place for you guys to have kiosk to talk about the airport expansion. The times that I've been there, it's been very well attended. I think we just need somebody, some sort of NGO to back it, but it would be, if in fact it does come to fruition, it'd be really great to have a nice display and a nice kiosk and you guys there to explain things to folks. So.
All right. All right, hearing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.